If recent TV and movies have taught us anything, it's that nostalgia is a double-edged sword. When swung correctly, it can be great and highly entertaining. When swung incorrectly, you can accidentally lop off a limb, your own head, or even cause everyone in the near vicinity to have homicidal thoughts. Pretty much nothing is immune to the power of nostalgia. Welcome to the MMO-stalgia Sance. Copyrighted. Which is what I'm calling the MMO genre's attempt at possibly lopping off its own head. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to the MMO genre at all for the past few years, well, that's likely because not very many AAA MMOs are being developed anymore. There are the select few big names still in the game, Blizzard, ArenaNet, Square Enix, Bethesda, all of which have had recent success in the market, but they're more exceptions than anything else. General interest in the genre has died down, as devs have mostly switched to survival games, MOBAs, or battle royales, all hoping to ride the newest popularity wave. So with all the big names ditching the MMO genre like a losing lottery ticket, which is a great analogy now that I think about it, that leaves us in the hopefully capable hands of indie developers, who will now drive this genre into the future by throwing the metaphorical car in reverse. Now, if you've been paying attention to the MMO genre lately, you've probably seen this odd trend popping up. A slew of indie MMOs are currently in development that aim to bring back the gameplay of older MMOs with the graphics of, well, slightly less older MMOs. Most of the time, you can easily pinpoint a particular older title that these indies took as its inspiration. With Pantheon, it's EverQuest, Legends of Aria, Ultima Online, Camelot Unchained, Dark Age of Camelot, Project Gorgon, Asheron's Call, and with Grand Skria, it's RuneScape. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a hit piece. I actually enjoy all of these games, or at least the ones I've played. In fact, this video was originally going to be about Grand Skria, a new indie MMO that just hit early access on Steam that I enjoy quite a bit, but maybe we'll cover that later. However, once I sat down to begin writing the script, I started to ask myself if this was what I was going to be doing for the foreseeable future. Making videos about MMOs that I could easily just say, it's like, insert older MMO here, except with slightly better graphics. It got me thinking, why exactly is the MMO industry so obsessed with the past at the moment? Why are so many developers trying this tactic when it's an entirely unproven concept? I mean, none of these games have launched, and the only one that has been released has not been received very well. So there's not a track record of success here. Why did so many devs get the idea to do this seemingly at the same time? Why even attempt this? Are these devs just following blind nostalgia, or is it something more? Naturally, everything from here on out is pure speculation, as I can only speak personally and I don't know jack shit. But let me go over what I think is happening here. My first thought is course correction. Going back to our car metaphor, a lot of players and developers feel the MMO genre took a wrong turn at some point and lost its way. That point tends to vary from person to person. Was it with World of Warcraft or something later? The reason also varies from person to person. Perhaps MMOs became too solo-oriented, too lobby-based, too endgame-based. Who knows? Whatever the reason or whenever it happened, the only era of MMOs that players generally agree isn't the culprit is the older generation. Looking at these upcoming indie MMOs, most are being developed by industry veterans. My best thought here is that after watching the genre start to falter with game after game, these devs started to think that perhaps the past held some sort of insight into why MMOs became so popular to begin with. And by going back to these core elements, they could prove that there was something more to these older MMOs than pure nostalgia. And in that, hopefully prove that the genre still has a future. Let's call it a soft reboot of sorts. Start all over and see if we can't get it right this time. Spider-Man knows what I'm talking about. My second thought is a set player base. Many newer MMOs try to be a game for as broad an audience as possible, hoping to catch at least one, whether it be PvE, PvP, casual, hardcore, etc. This of course makes sense marketing-wise, as they can market it as a game for everyone. Ironically, it ends up being a game for no one. By trying to appeal to such a large audience, the development becomes unfocused, and none of the gameplay elements end up getting the attention they need to be truly great. These upcoming indie MMOs tend to be more focused on appealing to a niche audience, the fans of the older games that they take their inspiration from. How many times have you heard, "Man, I'd love it if they remade," insert older MMO here, "with better graphics"? Well, here you go. It may not be the graphics you wanted, but more on that in a minute. Knowing your target audience can make development easier, as now you only have to meet their expectations, not everyone's expectations. The risk being taken is is also somewhat lessened, as once again you have a select target audience. You know how big it is, you know what they're looking for, how much they're willing to spend, and you can change your measurements for success to match. An MMO like Pantheon won't see numbers like World of Warcraft, but that doesn't mean it won't be successful. You have to change your definition of success. They don't need World of Warcraft numbers as long as they understand the market and plan properly. The third is pretty obvious: lower cost. No surprise here, indie devs generally don't have a lot of money, unless you're Crowfall or Ashes of Creation, but those are the exception. So trying to make a huge MMO with the best technology out there isn't always the best option. Indie MMOs can be made on a smaller budget with minimal staff. Heck, Project Gorgon has a team of 2 people, and gameplay-wise, it's generally considered pretty fantastic. Granted, this financial limitation means some parts of the game won't be quite up to date, like art and probably some of the more complex systems like combat. Very few indie MMOs are gonna have state-of-the-art action combat, and very few are gonna have state-of-the-art art. Yeah, whenever I hear people talk about these indie MMOs, this always comes up. Yeah, the gameplay's great, but why does it have to look so bad? Well, going back to point 1, we're starting over. I don't think these games are about being groundbreaking. They're about going back and reproving the concept of MMOs. At least I think. Maybe. I don't f***ing know. So to me, an older style of MMO makes sense for this. And since indie devs are the ones leading this charge, we're gonna have to deal with some of the limitations that come with that. And that means olden day graphics. Just like everyone else, I wish they could be a bit better, but I'm willing to deal with it for the right reasons. 4, the devs just want to play it. Something I've learned during my time making videos is that if you make a video that you want to watch, then there's a good chance others will too. It's a pretty simple concept, one that likely applies to game development as well. If the devs create a game that they want to play, it's likely others will want to play it too. Having talked with most of the devs for the games I listed earlier, they are making a game that they want to play. And if no one else is going to make the game you want, well, you might as well do it yourself. My last thought is nostalgia. Maybe all of my other points are way off base and I am completely wrong, which would not surprise me. This may all be a huge nostalgia-fueled cash grab. Or maybe it's a combination of everything, I don't know. But no doubt there's a little bit of nostalgia involved. Everyone wants the good old days back. Game devs are no exception. Come play our game and remember how great MMOs used to be, eh? Eh? Now in early access on Steam, but I'd like to think this isn't the only reason for these games to exist. Anyway, whatever the reasons may be, the MMO genre is definitely at an odd time. And my hope is that these MMOs aim to prove something. MMOs have taken a beating. They're down on their luck, but they're gonna be okay. And maybe by going back to fundamentals, we can prove that there's something special about this genre. And from there, we can move forward again. So before you start getting sad saying there's no new MMOs out there anymore, we do have a new batch of MMOs on the horizon. They're just different from what we might have expected. And that's okay. They may not be the MMOs we feel we deserve, but they might just be the MMOs we need right now.